I don't normally do videos about hostile workplace situations, but I felt that maybe I should do it because maybe this is a bigger issue than what it seems. So, these are just a few signs of hostile work environments. There's discrimination, verbal abuse, harassment, and that can come in many forms. It could be just harassment, sexual harassment, also making fun of people when they use the restroom, lack of trust with management, exclusion, sabotage and undermining coworkers. There's workplace violence as well, and that's when things get far out of control. Gaslighting. Then you'll have people sometimes with sabotage or undermining. They're in competition with you for positions. Maybe they want to get in a position of power so they can use it to abuse coworkers or workers that are underneath them. There's nepotism at jobs where people will hire people who their friends are related to, or that they know that they kind of like go against other coworkers. If you say something to one person, it gets back around to that person. They're all related, or they hire only their relatives, and so that's another way they undermine other people that aren't related at jobs. Then they may use tactics of racism, racial discrimination, gender discrimination. And it's not just against women, it can be against men. Then you have people who are petty at the jobs. They'll make fun of you, make fun of coworkers when they're using the bathroom. Maybe you're sick or you don't have like a lot of toleration for like maybe some type of food or something like that, and they may make fun of you because you have to go to the restroom and you have no other alternative but to go, as if when they go to the restroom, as if their odor smells like roses and others don't. If you get what I'm saying. So that's a human thing. Hopefully everybody who's healthy enough to can go to the restroom, and it's better out than in, is what they say. Because if you don't, then something's wrong. But you got people who gaslight at jobs. Sometimes they'll make fun of people, other coworkers, make them feel low, or they put other coworkers down, or they're looking to try to fire people so they can get their friends to work in the position that they got someone else fired in. There could be jealousy going on at the workplace. Then there's the issue of pay. Maybe some people won't get paid as much as others, and it could be a discriminative thing based on gender. A lot of times it could be maybe women don't get paid as much as the males, or maybe it could be in general people who are maybe getting paid less feel excluded from certain work environments because they're not getting paid the same as a co-worker. There could be a lot of things that go on at different places, different careers, places of work, and people experience these things, and it's real. And I think it doesn't get enough discussion about how it can be really toxic to work in these type of hostile work environments. A lot of times you're working around people who you might see them just like every day for maybe a period of years even, and you might be holding a lot of that in, and it's stressful. And then you're trying not to bring whatever problems that are at work home, because you feel like your home is more like a sanctuary, and you can release a lot of pent up frustration because you had to put on a smile, or you had to put on a face as if you like where you're at, and it is not a good environment. It's a hostile working environment. And a lot of times people will do these jobs because they have to pay bills, they have to pay rent. They don't have any other alternative but to do these type of jobs, because maybe at the time they looking at the way things are, depending on their city or the state, maybe it's finding jobs in some areas might be a little more challenging than other places. And a lot of people have been getting laid off lately. So some people are dealing with hostile work environments because maybe they realize that jobs are hard to come by. So they kind of put up with a lot of things that they probably normally wouldn't put up with if things were better, where there were more available jobs that are careers that they could get into. And some people are just maybe close to retirement, and they just deal with things until they're finally retired away and don't have to work as many hours at the same place, or maybe can choose some other career to get into later in life. And it may not be as easy for some people to just leave a job, and so they put up with a lot, and that can be very stressful. It can put a lot of emotional abuse on a person, and you might even feel like you dislike your coworkers. Some people really dislike their coworkers. Maybe you also deal with people who tell jokes, and the jokes aren't funny. The jokes are personal, about people's relationships, maybe about people, how they look, or, and then there's some places, from experience, and I'm saying this, there's some places where people, they already kind of know each other, and they form these cliques. It's almost like when you're in high school, there's the group, they're all cheerleaders, then there's the group they're in football, and then there's the group they're in track, and then there's the group that they're kind of the smart group, or they referred to them as nerds. They kind of hung out together, and then you got the other ones who are like more popular, and they kind of hang out with one another. So people tend to form cliques, and it can happen even after you get out of school and you get into the real world, into the workforce. It can be similar. You'll be with groups of people who you're able to get along with, and then there's others that you don't kind of feel like you're like-minded. And some people feel uncomfortable getting involved with people from work because a lot of times you don't want to get too personal with people you don't really know, because then they can get upset with you and then bring your personal life to work and reveal things about yourself. There are people that do things like that when they pretend as if they're your friend or they're somebody you can trust, and then next thing you know, they turn on you. So, I've been in some places where the work environment has been hostile, and I put up with it for a while, and then when you leave, you realize, wow, how was I able to stay there as long as I did? And then you think about it, it's maybe you have priorities, responsibilities, so you try to like put up with a lot in order to fulfill all of your responsibilities and your priorities, because your bills don't stop even if you stop working. So what people tend to do if things really get out of control is to try to look for other places to work, or they transfer to another place where they feel that they can start all over again on a clean slate. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes some mistakes in their lives. But to make fun of people because of things that they can't control, like going to the bathroom or how they look or where they come from or their language, is really petty. And it shows who those coworkers are, that they're really small-minded individuals. And this can go for either a male or female who takes pride in making fun of people or gossiping. There's also, that's another thing that happens, rumors and gossiping at work. And I know there was one work environment I was in, it was extremely toxic. There has been a couple, but the last one that I was in, there would be this woman, she would come in and she would tell jokes, and a lot of people would kind of, laugh at her jokes, but her jokes would go too far, and a couple of people didn't like it, and they transferred because they didn't like the types of jokes that she was saying. She would talk about people, what partners they choose to be with, and she would make fun of people going to the bathroom. She was real childish, and you would think somebody of her age, because this woman, I think she was like probably in her 30s or 40s, early 40s, and like late 30s, early 40s, and she would make fun of people going to the restroom. It was real childish, and she would joke about people and the things she would say. It would really rub people the wrong way. And then one lady had gotten enough of her joking and decided to transfer because she didn't want to deal with her anymore. And the jokes got too out of control, and I would see what looked like it could have been something that could have turned into a full-blown fight. So eventually that woman did transfer because she couldn't stand her, and she decided to work somewhere else away from that woman because she made the work environment real toxic. So I remember that. It was crazy, and I didn't actually know that they were that angry with one another until I saw a couple of arguments unfold between the two of them. And the one lady got so mad that she decided that she was going to transfer from there, and she finally did transfer. She got out of that place, and I know she was happy to leave because she finally too, I guess she told the lady how she felt, that she wasn't afraid of her because she was also a bully at work. And so some people deal with bullies, workplace bullies, people who go to work and then they threaten co-workers. People can threaten you at your job and act like they're trying to hurt you, or they're going to hurt you, or they're going to do something to you physically. And then, there are some people that get into actual fist fights at work with co-workers. And I've seen that, where they actually get into fights. There was a term called going postal. I don't know, some people might not be familiar with it, and others may know what that is. But there was a situation where I believe this was many years ago, that this co-worker at a post office, I think maybe he was very upset with some people at his job, And so he casually left the workplace, and he made like a few comments that he was disgruntled. And then when he came back, he used a weapon, I believe it was like a gun, and he shot up the place. And he shot some co-workers and he killed some people. And it was, I believe, at a post office. I can't remember which post office this was, but that's when the term going postal became a thing. And so it must have been a really hostile work environment for this individual, to the point to where this person got so angry they decided to come back with a firearm and kill the co-workers that gave them the blues. It made their probably years and years of abuse that they were dealing with, and they didn't know how to let it out. And when they did, they exploded. And it was in the worst way. And now, of course, it probably cost him, freedom. I would think probably now maybe that person may not be incarcerated by now, because that was some years back when it happened. But I think the person might have had to go through therapy as well, because I think they just snapped mentally. And they just went berserk and just started shooting up the place. They went back for the co-workers that they had the problems with. So that's why people need to be careful about who they're talking to, who they're gossiping about, and what type of abuse that they're giving to people at these jobs, because you don't know if that person is taking too much abuse, and they could snap and just say, I've had it up to here, and just let it all out, and you may not survive that whole episode. It could cost you your life, or you could end up losing a career, because maybe they will go to a lawyer, which this can happen. People can take people to court for sexual harassment or harassment and abuse. And men get abused at jobs as well. They could get abused. It's not just women. So, sometimes people tend to think only women face maybe harassment. Men can be harassed or sexually harassed as well, or they can be made fun of, or be in a hostile workplace environment and put up with a lot from coworkers as well. And I think not enough is actually said about these type of things, and there could be a lot more that is going on in the workplace, where it's not really disclosed or talked about widely, because people, they feel pressure that there's not very many jobs to go around, and they're just happy to have a job to make money so they can pay bills. So they put up with a lot, but at what expense? Is it really a healthy situation? Is there some way that you can talk to somebody and try to resolve the issue? A lot of times it may be such a hostile environment that people just wait until they transfer or they look for another place to work, and that might be a better situation. Maybe they working around a different group of people. Putting in a transfer could be a solution. If the environment is extremely toxic, you might not want to be around those coworkers for too much longer, because you don't want to have an episode where you just finally snap. And then there's some people who they get to the point where they just quit. They quit that job and go to another job. But I think it's better to find a job first before you quit the job that you're at, because you want to make sure that you have a cushion to fall on, so that if you leave one place and it's not suiting you well, that you have some other option out there lined up so that the transition is a lot smoother and you're not left with not having any money, nothing because the bills keep coming. So it's unfortunate, but here in California, there are some places that are very difficult and hostile work environments, and I'm sure it's not just here in the state of California. It's in many places, different states, different countries probably deal with hostile environments, unbearable work environments, some places that make you feel uncomfortable, and you just kind of put up with it because you don't have very many options at the moment. But yeah, it's just a sad situation. But I've seen where people get into fights, or they end up, police is involved, law enforcement, and then people end up in court behind a job, and co-workers not getting along, and you can hire a lawyer, and people can get into trouble for making false allegations. It's called defamation. They can also get in trouble for sexual harassment. They can get a written up. They could get fired. If you're talking about people going to the bathroom, it's harassment. It's a form of harassment as well. And asking people personal questions, what are you doing when you go to the bathroom? That's almost like sexual harassment. I believe it is, because you're asking them personal questions. And abuse, verbal abuse as well. And so to make people feel uncomfortable, to feel excluded, to feel harassed or bullied at work, it says a lot about who those individuals are if they take pride in bullying coworkers or making people feel uncomfortable or feel like they have to move jobs because they can't get along because people are looking to try to bully. So it does happen. And it can happen to either person. A man or a woman can be harassed at work, So too, another thing I've noticed, sometimes when there's one group of people, sometimes they don't all get along. Like maybe it's a place where there's a lot of women working, or it's a place where there's a lot of men working, or it's a place where there's a lot of one group of nationality working, and people get into arguments over certain social events or things that involve whoever they are, or there's a lot of gossiping going on. And it can be very toxic when there's a lot of gossiping going on and people trying to get into people's personal business in their lives. And I know one thing, taking your personal life to work is not a good idea, because it's spread around like wildfire, and people can be very, very evil with your private life, not be able to hold information, if they're not good people to be involved with. If you don't know too much about them, it's probably not a good idea to disclose your private life to people that you don't really trust, that haven't earned your trust. So anyway, that's what this video is about. And I mean, you could share in the comments what place you work at and what hostile environment maybe you've experienced in the past, or if you're currently now experiencing a hostile workplace environment. Because all of us have had some kind of experience at a job or a career or someplace, and that might be why some people prefer not to actually be at some of these places, because maybe they've tried it and it hasn't been favorable. And so people can also put you down if you're not religious. Maybe you don't partake in the same religion as they do. They bully you for that. They might bully you because of, your beliefs. That's why some people may not want to share their personal beliefs or their life, and they disagree with what other people, maybe their belief is different. They may agree to disagree. So that, I know, does happen a lot in the workplace. You'll get some people who assume that everybody has the same beliefs, and that's not true. So because one person thinks one way doesn't mean everybody has this idea of group think or group thought. So having said that, that's pretty much this video. But it does happen. There's a lot of bullying at work. There's a lot of name calling. People will say things behind your back, or they think you're not listening and they'll be talking about you. Instead of being a co-worker, they're being, somebody that is abusive at the workplace. They're more against you than for you, and they're not working as a team. They're working more as a bully at work. So maybe it's better to transfer than to just stay there in a place where it's uncomfortable.